Hi guys, so this video today is to show you our exact method for applying extensions. If you follow everything exactly as we have in this video, we can guarantee that you will get a minimum of 3 weeks wear with the nails lasting up to 6 weeks, which is obviously not advisable. It's very important that you do not add in any extra steps and do things exactly as we do in the video. Okay, so before we start any extensions treatment, we are going to sanitize the client's hands on the top and the bottom. So I am using a hand sanitizer, which is also a multi-purpose spray, and that has IPA in it. So that is going to sanitize the client. I'm not at any other point going to use acetone or any other sanitizer after this. Okay, this is an important step. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my prep. So I'm going to be using an Efile, but you can manually prep as well. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use my sanding bands to etch the natural nail. So you want to use a 150 or 180 sanding band, and this is just to rough up the nail. Remember, we're not wanting to file through any layers of the nail. Just rough it up so the extensions can hold on to them. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my cuticle prep with my Efile. So the bit that I'm using now is the mini barrel squared from Lucy Pastorelli. This comes in our Lucy Pastorelli X nail order full cover tip kit, which is a really great kit and has everything that you need in it to do full cover tips, other than a mandrel and sanding bands, which is kind of a staple for anybody doing Efile anyway. So this mini barrel squared is really good for sort of pushing the cuticle back, removing any dead proteins from the nail plate as well, and it just exposing more of the nail plate. You don't have to, if you don't use an Efile, don't worry, I'm going to briefly go over manual prep once I've finished with this. Everybody does prep differently, and if you use Efile, you'll have your own favourite bits for the cuticle. The most important thing in terms of retention is using the 150 or 180 sanding bands on the natural nail. It doesn't matter what bits you use for cuticle prep. That shouldn't affect longevity at all. Just going to dust off the nails just so I have a nice clear field of vision, and then I am going to go in with another bit which comes in our full cover tip kit is the mini pear. This one is really good for getting into small, harder to reach areas. You can see how much more protein and dead skin is coming off with that. Again, you don't need all of these bits to have a successful set of extensions, and at this point your prep is your personal preference, except for when we are prepping the physical nail plate for the full cover tips. And my last bit that I am going to go in with does not come in our kit, but it's a bit that I have recently fallen in love with. So this guy is the Wisp, and I really love this for cleaning up the cuticles at the end. This is really good to be used in place of nippers, although there is certainly a place for a hybrid method of prep. If you are using Efile, I'll probably still go over at the end with my nippers and remove any little stubborn areas. so now we're going to dust these off, and I am going to look for any little bits that still need nipped. If I was going to be using a manual method of prep, I would use either a 180 or a 150 nail file. Either of these is fine. We are never going to use a buffer or a buffing block. It must be a nail file, and it must be a 150 or a 180. Alternatively, you're going to use your sanding band on your e-file, which again should be 150 or 180. Anything more is going to smooth the nail too much, including a 240. So 150 or 180 only. It's important to note at this point as well, obviously I'm wearing gloves. We always recommend the use of gloves as it reduces the risk of nail techs developing allergies. But also, as what I was talking about at the beginning in terms of using sanitizer and acetone, you're not going to introduce any further oils onto the nail plate once you've already sanitized the nails of things like oils. So wearing gloves as well is a really good way of stopping you from having to use acetone or a dehydrator after this, because we do not recommend the use of acetone or dehydrators before applying extensions. So we're going to go for a completely dry method. So we sanitized the nail plates before we started. We've now prepped the nail plates. We've dusted them to make sure they're completely clear of any dust and debris, and now we are ready to apply our tips. So we're going to be using clear medium almond tips today, and when choosing our sizes, this is also really important for retention. Too big, the nails could pop off. Too small, it could cause pinching on the client. So I know that Adele here has really small nail beds, so I'm going to have a little look for 11. So we want to make sure that it fits from side to side and doesn't overlap onto the skin at all. If you have a client who's between sizes, choose the bigger size and use your nail file to size up. I always pick for both hands at this point because 99% of the time the client is going to be the same size on both hands. And if you're ever unsure, you can of course measure them as you go. So I'll put one for each hand on either side, and then I'm going to check the next one. So again, I'm getting 2 out. We're always going to try and do this treatment 2 hands at a time because this is meant to be a time-saving treatment. So I'll see if I can show you what I would mean by too big. So we can see, this one's not a perfect example, I'll try another one. Yeah. So you can see this one, it would be overhanging onto the skin. This would mean that it was too big and likely to pop off because the tip wouldn't be sealed all the way around. So sometimes with thumbs, people will have a flatter cuticle area than the thumb comes. So you can just gently file it down to make it slightly less round at the base. And then you'll have a slightly more snug fit. So once we have our tips lined up, we're going to put the box away so that we don't spill them. And now you've got a couple of different options when it comes to prepping the inside of the tip. The first thing we're going to go through is using X-Etch. Okay, so when we're using X-Etch, it's really important that we mash the product in. So what we're going to do first, and you'll notice here that I've cut my brush, I feel like it gives you a larger surface area and just creates a better effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint it on the full area that's going to be in contact with the natural nail, and then we're going to mash it in to create a grippy texture. You need to be quite thorough in doing this and make sure you go all around the edges and up to the area that is going to cover the free edge. So we're going to paint it on, you'll feel it starting to go sticky, and then we're going to mash it in. You don't want too much on. If you have excess, make sure you brush that off, because we don't want a pool of the product, because that will take a long time to work the product in. So again, making sure we work up to the full area where the free edge should be, right round all of the edges as well. Wanting to create a nice grippy texture for the gel to adhere to. So you'll know that the X-Etch has worked as it should have. If it creates a sort of mottled texture, the tip should no longer be completely clear. It should have a sort of mottled effect. See if I can show you. Okay, so the other option that you have when it comes to prepping the inside of your tips is that you can use your E-file. Now you can really use any bit that you like, but we have a bit specially created for this, which comes in our full cover tip kit that we do with Lucy Pastorelli. This is the perfect shape and size for etching the inside of tips. A lot of people choose to use a sanding band, but the problem with the sanding band is on the smaller tips that you tend to ruin the sidewalls. So this guy is perfect for all sizes. So when we are using this, you want to use it at a speed of maybe around 10. And we are just going to etch the area that is going to be in contact with the natural nail, being careful not to damage the sidewalls. Again, right up to the edges. We just want to take that shine off. We don't want to thin out the nail or go through the nail at all. Once under nails are all prepped, the tips are all prepped, we are ready to get started with our application. So again, I'm not going to use any additional dehydrator or acetone. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with our X Prime and I'm going to apply it to all of the nails. So now the nails are all primed, it's time to go ahead with our application. So you can use either our torch or our X light. Today I'm just going to use the X light because it's slightly easier to get it in for angles for you. So you're going to apply the amount of X gel depending on the size of the client's natural nail beds. Obviously you're going to learn this through experience. I always like to just wipe on the back of my glove, make sure there's no excess to make our job simpler at the end. So what we're going to do now is going to place the tip at a 45-degree angle at the cuticle area, really keeping all of our pressure at the cuticle, and then we're going to push down, keeping the pressure at the cuticle area until the gel reaches over to the free edge. We are now going to lift the nail over to the light and hold it there for a few seconds, at least 10 centimeters away from the light source. It's really important that we do not apply the tip in the light, and I will show you what I mean by this. So we can hold it for a few seconds. I like to take it out, check that there's no movement. If you have any excess gel, you can take a nail art brush, or I like to use a microfiber brush, and then wipe this away. It makes for a more comfortable finish for the client, and it avoids any uncured gel going onto the skin. So once you have done that, get the client to pop their hand back under the light, and you're now going to take the client's second hand underneath their other hand so that their hand has something to rest on, and we're going to apply to the same finger on the other hand. Now this method is designed to always be doing two hands at once for speed, okay? This hand was the X etched product, Efile etched. Now what I mean by applying in the light would be applying this tip when the finger is here and some light is shining onto the finger. We do not want to do that. We want to make sure that when we are applying the tip that the nail is completely away from the light source. Again, 45-degree angle, keeping the pressure at the cuticle, pressing down till we reach the free edge, and then we are going to move up into our light source. Now you'll notice that I'm covering the free edge, or just past the free edge, with my thumb. This means that any gel under this area cannot cure, so that if there is anything past the free edge, I can pull my thumb away, and then I can wipe away any of that uncured gel that is past the free edge. Again, get the client to put their finger back into the light source while we work on the other hand. The absolute key to not getting lifting from the cuticle or a step at the cuticle is keeping that pressure specifically at the cuticle. Okay, so we're going to keep this pressure, and almost the tip is going to act like a dam. Nothing can get past there because the pressure is all here. There's no pressure in the middle, it's all here. Then we're going to press down slowly until we reach the free edge, up to the light source, around 10 centimeters away. Hold it for approximately 5 seconds, which is enough just to cure it so it can hold. Again, I like to pull my finger out, wipe away any excess. Adele has very small natural nail beds, so I'm probably just naturally going to use a little more gel because that's what you're used to doing. And then we'll get the client to hold their finger in the light source while we work on the other hand. This is the key to a fast application. So swiping some on, let's try and use just enough this time. Wipe the back. That 45-degree angle at the cuticle, so we're not over the cuticle, we're not under the cuticle, we are right up to it, okay? But not pressing into it. Wipe away any excess gel, just a tiny bit there. And then we'll keep that there. And again, we're going to work on the other hand. Again, I just want to reiterate that it's really important not to apply the nail under any source of light or near any source of light. It needs to be completely away from your light source, because otherwise what happens is if you apply it near the light source and even a small amount of light, UV light, is getting to the gel, it will start curing before you've even applied it, and this can cause nails to pop off prematurely. If you follow every step exactly as I'm doing right now, you should have no problem with nails lasting at a very minimum of 3 weeks, and they should last even up to 6 weeks. Obviously that's not recommended, but they should still last no problem. So whether you're using the torch or the X light, it's exactly the same. We never want to be closer than 10 centimeters. We always want to be out of the light source. Often because the X light has that movable head with the bendable neck, that's often when people might accidentally get the nail into the light source before they should. So just be very wary of that. Again, keeping that pressure. So we're going to hold the tip. This is another important thing. Hold the tip as far down as you can. Oh, it's got a bit of fluff on that. As far down as you can, and have your thumbs and fingers facing this way. Another really important thing I want to point out is supporting the client's finger, how you should hold the client's finger. You shouldn't hold their finger like this. You want to make sure that there is support underneath the nail and underneath the finger, okay? So we're not holding it like this. Oh, this bit of fluff is terrorizing me. We are holding it with support underneath, which means that we can get a really good pressure, okay? And right on the end so we can see what we are doing. With the shorter styles, it is obviously a little harder to grip and a little bit harder to see what you're doing at the free edge, but you want to try and hold it as low down as you can and as near the end as possible. And we're going to hold that there. And if you give me the other hand under, again, we're doing 2 hands at once. The system is designed to be able to do 2 hands at once. This is why we have our 2 different light options, which can be used handless as such, so that you can be doing both hands at one time and save you a lot of time. Once you've had a bit of practice, it really shouldn't be taking you any longer or much longer than 40 minutes, including one gel colour applied. Obviously it depends on your prep and everybody does prep differently, but it really shouldn't be taking much longer than that. If they're taking you an hour and 15, an hour and a half, you need to be looking at what is adding on that extra time. Okay, so thumbs, obviously we're going to use a little bit more gel because thumbs have a bigger surface area. Sometimes with the thumbs as well, it's good to spread it across the way, just so it gets everywhere we need to go. As well, if you don't have a good amount of gel, we do here, but just a good top tip, give the finger a wiggle to really get it applied all over the areas that we need it to. Again, we're going to hold it about 10 centimeters away from the light for 5 seconds or so, 5 to 10 seconds before we release. Wipe away any excess gel, which I've really been using a lot of excess gel today, Adele. And then pop the client's hand under there while you work on the other hand. So again, keeping that pressure at the cuticle, pushing down the free edge, give it a little wiggle to make sure it spreads to all the areas we need. And then we're going to hold it under the light, keeping that very firm pressure. We're not releasing any pressure at all for 5 to 10 seconds. My preference is at that point just to pull it out the light, then release, make sure there's no movement, no airs getting in, and then pop the client's hand back there while you work on the other hand. Obviously now we're finished working on the other hand. So what I am going to do at this point, especially because I work fast and you can't always trust what your client is doing, is I'm going to get the client to pop their hands in my normal LED light for 60 seconds to ensure we have a full cure all around. Okay, pop that hand in over here. Okay, so now the nails are all cured, all applied, I'm going to remove the shine. So I'm going to use nail buffer, so you can use 180, 240. All we're doing here is removing the shine. It is important that you do not use a sanding band and do not use a nail file over the tips at this point. What we do not want to do is we do not want to thin the tip any, because the tip is the perfect structure, so we want to make sure that we do not take any of that structure away. So we are quickly just going to flick over simply to remove the shine so that the gel polish sticks to the tips. Okay, at this point, if there's any little tabs or anything like that that you want to flick off, then you absolutely can. So the nails can be reshaped if you want to. We would never recommend cutting them down from a long to a short, but if you want to go from a long to medium or medium to short, then that is absolutely fine. What happens if you cut them too short is they can lose the structure, and that's when you could have premature snapping. So at this point, if you had any seepage around any of the edges that you wanted to remove, seeing if we have any, there was one somewhere. You can either just go in with your nail file and just gently file away. If it was a big chunk, you could go in with your nippers and just nip it straight off. Because it'll be cured onto a shiny surface, it will come straight off. Or the other option that we have a bit that comes in our full cover tip kit with Lucy Pastorelli. So this guy is fantastic for blending around the cuticles if you did have any areas of lifting, of seepage, very gently. This is made of ceramic as well, so it's great, it's nice and safe. And the other thing that this bit is really good for is if you had excess under the free edge that you had forgotten to remove before it cured, you could go underneath it with this. It was easier if you asked the client to turn their hand upside down, and you can go in with it under here. But this bit is really, really good for that too. If your application wasn't perfect at the cuticle area and your pressure wasn't great, you could go around with this bit as well, just to blend in any area of cuticle that you felt could do with that. So once we have done that, we are ready to paint them. And now you're just going to go in and paint them as you usually would paint any other nail enhancement. No base coat is required. This is made of soft gel, so this is your base coat, so you can go in with your color coats and your top coat straight away. Hi guys, so I hope you found that video educational and you learned something from it. Again, remember, it's very important to do everything exactly as we did in that video, not adding in any extra steps to get the maximum retention that you should be getting. So we're not going to be adding in any extra products like dehydrator or acetone, and we're certainly not going to be applying the tips in direct light. So make sure you follow everything exactly as we did. As always, if you have any issues, please send us a DM or an email and we will get back to you as quickly as possible. Bye guys.